You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
This episode is brought to you by Wisconsin Cheese. We've been making cheese in Wisconsin since before we were even a state, which may be one reason why we win so many awards for it. It's what happens when a whole state dreams in cheese. Find your next favorite cheese at wisconsincheese.com.
Have you ever wished to be a fly on the wall, listening in on a conversation between iconic, trend-setting chefs?
People who have inspired a whole generation of cooks and helped define the way we eat today.
Well, now you can. Welcome to On the Line, a weekly conversation with me, Amanda Freitag,
And me, Daniel Holzman,
where we invite inspiring culinary innovators to talk about where they're from, where they're going, and how to get there.
With 50 years of combined restaurant experience, we've learned one thing's for certain. There's always more to learn.
And the more you know, the more delicious life can be.
So join us on the line and escape for a little taste of what's to come.
Listen to On the Line on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Good afternoon, everybody. We are live here. I am RJ, I'm your host, and we are going to be talking with an awesome guest today, Barkha Cardoz, who's going to talk to us about all sorts of things. But we have just one news item I want to tell you about. My wife brought this to my attention yesterday, and so I want to tell you about this very strange story that I read that is apparently that Costco, which we are loyal Costco shoppers. There is a apocalypse dinner kit that stays good for 25 years. So this is it's a bucket that comes at $63, and it has multiple servings of teriyaki rice, pasta Alfredo, macaroni and cheese, apple cinnamon cereal, and a bunch of other side dishes. Apparently this, and there's tons of stuff in there. Orange drink, whatever that means, granola, there's all kinds of stuff in there. And it is apparently good for up to 25 years. So it's scary and strange and weird and funny. So I wanted to share that with you. But welcome to Amuse News. And again, I'm your host, RJ. We are taking you through the food world. And today I wanted to bring my guest on so that we have as much time as possible to talk. Good morning. How are you?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm very well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks. And I know you just got back from a trip, and we appreciate you taking the time. And for those of us those people who are listening who don't know, can you tell us about the Cardoz legacy? Just maybe give us the quick backstory. I think a lot of people listening probably are familiar, but for those who aren't.
So I'm Barkha Cardoz. My husband was Floyd Cardoz, the chef. And Cardoz Legacy is a company that we started in 2020. It actually wasn't supposed to be a company. It was just us when Floyd passed away in March of 2020 from COVID. It was a group of us just getting things together that were dear to us, articles, posts, recipes and stuff together to put together on what was then Floyd's website, to just give all of us a space and a place to come together to see what his life was about, which was quite surprising because even I, being his wife of 28 years, didn't know what he had done and how much he had done and what an impact he had on people all around him. So Cardoz Legacy started in bits and pieces as that website of bringing stuff together. And then from there, it went on to us releasing the first lot of the masalas that we did in October of 2020. And so now it's a collection of spice blends. It's, a new tea blend that we've done. It's a cookbook. It's just everything that we can do to not only keep Floyd's memory alive, but it's also to take his legacy forward with flavors, with paying it forward, giving back to the community. And so that's what Cardoz legacy is about.
And so all that was happening, I know, and I'm sorry, must have been a traumatic time for you. Not only do you lose your husband, but also you're navigating COVID with a bunch of businesses and responsibilities and all that. And so I'm just curious, like, did you immediately know that you had to kind of do something like this to keep everything going? I mean, was there consideration of just like pausing everything and starting over once the pandemic subsided, or did you feel like you had to kind of just go all in?
I think selfishly, it started with me trying to find ways to navigate through my grief, through my loss, through, as a girlfriend of mine always says, is when your world goes upside down. Trying to know what to do next. And all I knew at that point was the only way Floyd would stay with me was through his stuff, through his memories, his words, his recipes. And so I think I wasn't even thinking, I wasn't processing. It was just, what is going to help me get up tomorrow, get out of bed, put my feet to the ground and be able to stand up? Because I did have the consciousness at that point that my sons were watching me. And they needed permission and they needed a way and they needed direction to be able to do the same thing. And so I think that was all that my priority was about, is how am I going to keep Floyd alive? And how am I going to give myself a purpose so that I can get up in the morning and put my feet down, stand tall, so that my boys then get permission to stand tall as well. And so I think that was the only thing on my mind at that point. Everything else just happened. But that was my way of saying, I'm going to take you into my kitchen, Floyd, because I know you loved being there with me when I cooked. And so I'm just going to do everything that gave us joy as a couple, as a family. And so that was how all of this came together.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, and I want to talk about the spice, the masala spices that with the package that I got, because we've been cooking with them already, which is really fun. But can you talk a little bit just on the kind of business side, like going for? I know there's like a hospitality angle with, there's I guess packaged goods. There's straight to consumer. Like, it sounds like a complicated thing to figure out. How did you navigate how to, I don't know, keep the hospitality stuff going while still moving into kind of like consumer packaged goods? It feels like you probably learned about a bunch of new industries like very quickly.
Yeah, that's like you literally are thrown into the ocean and told learn to swim. And that's pretty much what it was. But strangely, the backstory to that is Floyd and I always worked as a team, whether it was when we got married. So we were friends from cooking school. Mm-hmm. And we got married, we had kids. And so we consciously decided that this was his time and mine was to navigate the family. And so over the years, that's what we did. But I had always, this was my dream. This was something I had talked to him when the boys were like 7 and younger, saying we need to do spice blends. And so that, transitioned and grew into me doing spice blends with him and keeping them in the kitchen for us to cook our dinners, which is what I used to do every night. From that becoming the kids wanting to take them to college because it was easy for them to just use the blends and cook food that they ate at home. So we had started working on it where it was our recipes, our family recipes of things that we cooked. And Floyd was very clear about, this is your dream, because that was always my thing to him is, what am I going to do when I grow up? Mm-hmm. I don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up. And my growing up was, okay, the kids are done with college and they're, into their spaces. So that's where it had started, with him promising me that he would help me. He would now sit back and let me be the face forward of whatever we decided to do next as a family. And so we'd already started those conversations with Ethan Frisch at Burlap and Barrel. Mm-hmm. And within had worked for Floyd at Tabla as a young cook. And so that was the connection. And he's like, I think I found the perfect person for you to work with. And I'm like, what do you mean you? He's like, well, this is your baby. This is your grown-up moment. And I'm going to help you. I'm going to support you like you've done for everything I've done. But this is your turn to shine. And so that was something that was already in the works. And we had, nailed down a few recipes that we wanted to put out. And then COVID happened. And we sat still because it was, is this going to happen now? And I remember Ethan and I having a conversation, and I said, Ethan, is this done now? Because Floyd's not here. And he goes, no, if you want to do it, because you're the one that's been doing it, we'll do it. But I couldn't bring myself to say that this is my space now, this is me now, because that was the grief, the loss, trying to hold him. Also, the big thing in my head, RJ, at that time was this huge imposter syndrome of, how dare you? Who do you think you are that you need to stand in that space? Because this is Floyd's space.
Right.
And I never thought of it before he passed, because it was always, he was by my side. So it was like, it's us. And now that he wasn't there, it was like, how am I going to navigate this? And do I have the right to navigate this? So I think we got through that. And Ethan had, their company was already going from losing all their customers that were chefs that were buying from them to navigating to e-commerce. Because that everything else had died for them as a business. And they just started. And it was that time when we put these masalas out as well. And so I think they learned how to do the e-commerce part of it as a majority of their business model. And they taught me along the way. I have to say, I learned so much, literally, doing it. We went into the co-packer. We couldn't get equipment to blend the masalas. We literally used commercial coffee grinders, ground all the spices, put them in these big 200-pound containers, hand mixed everything for the first lot. And I think that just showed you and taught me that when you need to do something, you figure it out. And so I think that is how we've learned. And over the years now, we're going on 4 years, and Burlap and Barrel has shown me the way of how to navigate all of this.
This episode is brought to you by Wisconsin Cheese. There's a reason when you think of Wisconsin, you think cheese. Cheese is a huge part of Wisconsin's history and future. In Wisconsin, the state of cheese, the tradition of cheese-making excellence began 180 years ago, before Wisconsin was recognized as a state. Immigrants traveled to settle in this lush green hills of Wisconsin, bringing their cheese-making traditions with them. These storied skills, combined with the freshest milk available, created a cheese-making culture that is uniquely Wisconsin. Wisconsin's 1,200 cheesemakers, many of whom are third and fourth generation, continue to pass on old world traditions while adopting modern innovations in cheese-making craftsmanship. Find your next favorite cheese at wisconsincheese.com.
That's really amazing, and really amazing timing in retrospect.
Yes.
Right?
It was. And so I think and I just laugh, and this is me, always saying, Floyd's navigating. Floyd's navigating all this, and we've learned to grow with that space. We've learned to do things, and sometimes I just sit back and I'm like, how did all this happen? And I'm like, there was a bigger picture. I just had to step into it. And that's what it is.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing all that.
It's my reality, right? It is my reality.
Yeah. And so in terms of the restaurant side of things, because there were, several restaurants in addition to everything else it sounds like there was a lot in the works, and then you had to kind of continue everything. How did you build that team, or how did you keep things moving? Having, like you said, kind of jumped in, which, by the way, imposter syndrome is real. And I feel like many of us, I feel like we all kind of feel it in some way or another, but it must have been hard for you to jump into
those big shoes. And
yeah.
I'm not stepping into the shoes. I can never step into the shoes, but I do know that I take the shoes along with me every step of the way that I go, because it's like, that was us and it's still going to be us. I'm just going to be the one that's going to navigate this up front.
Yeah. What was that like building a team, or did you keep the team? Like, was it challenging to try to navigate the kind of, I guess, relationships, because these work relationships, especially in the culinary industry and the hospitality industry, are hard and complicated, or was everyone just happy to kind of have you there?
The restaurants, basically, we had closed Bombay Bread Bar in September of 2019. And I still remember, the last day of cleaning and sweeping the restaurant out to hand it back and thinking, like, why? And I'm a big believer in don't question. Just own it and absorb it and know that there is a bigger picture. And now when I think back with COVID, it's like, if that restaurant was open when Floyd passed, that would have been a nightmare for me to deal with, to just not only take on your personal grief, but also take on the responsibility of the team that needs you to be there for them. As far as India is concerned, we're partners with an amazing group of people that run the place. Floyd was the culinary director. He was, one of the founding partners there. And he had set them up with such great people as far as the chefs were concerned and the team. And they themselves are such amazingly talented human beings that are part of this business model together as a company. And I literally don't have to do anything. I'm lucky that I'm still a part of it. They're running with it. They're doing everything. They're doing just such amazing stuff. They've opened, 2 more spaces, 2 new concepts after Floyd passed, with things that they had been talking about. And I just get to enjoy it. I get to go there and just be, like the queen bee that walks in and says, I'm loving my space. I'm loving what they do. And I don't have to do anything with India. They still will reach out. There's more of now a personal relationship where there is, are you okay? Do you need anything? And when I go there, we go out to dinners. I get to literally walk into those spaces with such pride and joy to say, I get to be a part of this bigger equation, but I don't have to do anything. It's, the company there that takes care of everything. That's amazing. I just get to enjoy it.
Well, I'm sure that they feel lucky to have you as part of it too.
We're blessed. We're all blessed. I always say Floyd left us with good people, and that's the blessing.
It's a big part of it, right? Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing all this, and thank you. I want to talk just quickly again, go back to kind of the spice blends and the cookbook. We recently made a saag chicken using the garam masala. My wife is a little bit like, she'll follow recipes, but also just kind of improvise. So we used an entire huge container of spinach and some chicken and used a lot of the garam masala in it. It was really awesome. And we made a chaat masala chickpea dish as well. So we've been kind of using them and everyone, in our family is loving them. And we haven't even gotten into the actual recipes. So I feel like that's a good start. But what were you hoping to do with these? Because they're all similar, but very different spices, and putting them in the hands of people who might not have a lot of experience with them.
I think the biggest thing that I wanted for people to do is to cook from their heart and to cook without fear. Those were the 2 big takeaways that we had when we were doing the spice blends, because Indian food has a bad rap of it's so difficult and there's so much to it and stuff. And I wanted people to be able to feel the joy of the flavors and not to be intimidated by them. So it was like, I'm going to try and simplify that whole kitchen cabinet of 15 and 20 spices that people think they need to use when they cook Indian food, to say, just add 1 teaspoon of this blend and you can do this. And I want people to know that it's easy if you just let go of all these boundaries that we draw up with cuisines of saying Indian food only has to have this and Italian food only has to be cooked a certain way. You can cook anything and add flavor to it. And that's what the masalas need to bring to your kitchen and to your table is, I'm making a pot of beans and I can actually throw garam masala in it, or I can throw the Kashmiri to give it a little kick.
Yeah.
But it's going to be my pot of beans.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
that makes sense.
that was the intention when we did this, is it wasn't going to be restricted to it being cooked or used just for Indian food, but it was just going to be used to add more flavor to whatever it is that you love cooking in your kitchen.
That's so great. Thank you. I guess in the intro to the book, you talk a lot about, some of the not necessarily entry level dishes, but things that you would always have. And you talk about dal, you talk about some of the chutneys. Like, what if someone got this spice, the six spice kind of pack, and was like, what should I do first? Where do you tell people to start?
I would ask them to start with things that possibly, if you're someone that's a complete newbie to cooking with Indian flavors, to try and do like the garam masala, the chaat masala, because the garam masala is almost a sweet, fragrant finishing masala that you could make, like I said, a pot of beans. You could make, you're grilling something. You just want to add that little flavor profile on. You can add that at the end. The chaat masala is tart, tangy. It's got all these pops of flavor that you can add. Cut up cucumbers, tomatoes. It's summer. Cut up tomatoes and just sprinkle the chaat masala.
Yeah.
Do your watermelon, put some chaat masala on it. Start there. Yeah. Understand what that flavor is doing to your mouth, to the sensations you feel, what it does, lean into it, and then use them with simple stuff like the Indian recipes of lentils, dal. It's like a go-to. I eat dal every day, and I'll make different kinds of dal. And you can add, again, the garam masala at the end, or you can add a little bit more of heat with the Kashmiri masala. You can marinate meats. It's summer. Marinate your meats with the vindaloo, with the green tikka masala. Put it on the grill. Do your vegetables. There's so much you can do. And you don't even have to get into, I have to cook Indian vegetables and Indian food. Just cook your food and just add flavor.
Yeah. I feel like it's interesting because I feel like there is so much, not necessarily hesitation, but I just feel like there's such a lack of experience with a lot of home cooks in the US with these kinds of spices and these kinds of flavors, like even just sprinkling the masala spices on fruit is like something that most people would not think of doing. I'm just wondering if you've gotten feedback on this, the recipes and the spices from people, or anything that surprised you, or what's been the overall kind of reception to, I think, like bringing people around to some of these flavors in terms of home cooking?
There's a lot of that. So when we were writing the cookbook, we asked, literally on Facebook, we asked people if they were ready to be testers for us. And there were so many people that signed up for it, from, just the Burlap and Barrel forum, people that were members of it. And we literally had all of them do it. And the biggest feedback that I got was, oh my God, I didn't realize it was so flavorful. It was so simple to use. It's like my husband that doesn't like to use anything else other than salt and pepper in his food now wants me to repeat making these dishes, because when they were testing them, they were making it a couple of times. And so the families were eating that as dinners. Like the young kids that don't want to, or are afraid of it's going to be hot, it's going to be spicy, using it, wanting to use it. I have, that 20 to 30-year-olds that have smaller kitchens and don't know what to do. And they've started using, like my boys, their friends that went to college with them were familiar with flavors because they'd come to our house, and now in different parts of the country, and they will message me and say, Mrs. Cardoz, I used your masala and I grilled for my girlfriend, or I did this. And for me, that's joy, because I feel we've put them in spaces of not being fearful. And that surprise element, that amazingly surprise element that always comes back from people saying, I didn't realize that just adding a little bit of this masala changed the level of flavors in my food. And to me, that's like the biggest compliment you can get, is that people are open and ready to try it, and not once, but do it on a regular basis, because they're so simple. They're easy to use.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool to hear. And I'm sure it reinforces your belief that this is the right, thing to be doing when you hear that great feedback. That's really cool. What, I guess my last question is just what comes next for Cardoz Legacy? What else are you thinking about? And yeah, what's in the works?
There's a lot of exciting stuff that we're looking at. I can't share that with you, but I know that whatever is done, because the way we've set ourselves up, the way we think, the way Cardoz Legacy works is with intention. It's not, let's just, I'm not looking to do the sprint to a destination. I'm in it for the long haul. It's a marathon. It's a slow run. It's a journey. And that journey changes and evolves depending on where I am mentally, emotionally, in a space where my consciousness is. Like that first year was grief, and it was just trying to hold really tight to Floyd, to his memories. So the first masalas were about what he liked to eat. And that was the spice blends that we put out the first year. The second year was about, like I said, the imposter syndrome. And I'm like, am I going to test the waters to see who I am and where I belong? So those spice blends that came out the next, especially the chaat masala, that's mine. Mm-hmm. It was all me, that I was like, I used to get teased by Floyd that everywhere I went, I had, instead of carrying, a lot of Indians carry a chili ketchup or some kind of, chili powder with them to add if they go out, because they want that heat level. Mm-hmm. I needed chaat masala. I needed that. I had to take my chaat masala everywhere. So that was about me. And then when we realized that people wanted to try the spice blends, but they were nervous and they didn't know what to do, is when the cookbook happened. And so, the third year was about the cookbook, because there was that need of like, how am I telling people to use it when I'm not showing them the way? And so that's how the cookbook came out. This awesome. Year was actually about taking a moment and absorbing life. And so I turned 60 this year. And for me, that was a consciousness of Floyd didn't get to turn 60. And if I'm being blessed and I'm being given that space to turn 60, am I just going to give it away doing things that just need to be done? Or am I going to pay attention to family, to what I wanted to do, to what I feel is the right thing to do? So I took this time to just make it about family. And so while that's happening, it's also now next year's coming up, and there are new things that we're thinking of. And again, it's with intention and consciousness of what else, because the big thing that we have as a group is teaching, but also paying it forward. We need to do that. So I think that's going to be a big mix next year's teaching, and then finding new things to pay it forward with.
Nice. That's great. Well, that really aligns with where HRN is going as well. So I hope we can keep in touch and talk more.
It'll be awesome. I would love that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the amazing spices and for taking the time to talk today. It's been fun.
Thank you so much for having me, RJ. Thank you.
And to everyone listening and watching, we'll be back later this week. And thanks for tuning in. See you next time.